In Long Island, Millie arrives at a very fancy house for a job interview. Nina is impressed by Millie's resume, saying she may be overqualified to be a housemaid because of her college degree. The housemaid must clean, cook, take care of a child, and live with them. While giving Millie a tour of the house, Nina reveals that she's pregnant, but she asks Millie to keep the secret for now. When they're done, Nina explains that she's still interviewing people, but she gives Millie some gas money and says she has a good feeling about her. Millie leaves in her car thinking that Nina won't call her after doing a background check. Everything on her resume is a lie and even her glasses are fake. She's currently living in her car and only gets to wash up in bathrooms at gas stations or diners. One morning, the police find Millie sleeping in her car, so she claims that she just needed a nap after taking care of her elderly mother to get them off her back. At that moment she gets a call from Nina, who informs her she's got the job. Millie immediately heads back to the fancy house and finds groundskeeper Enzo, who opens the gate for her. When Millie goes inside, she's surprised to find the front door open and a mess in every room. Nina rushes to hug her and sees she only has 2 bags, so Millie claims that she left the rest of her stuff in a storage unit. Then Nina explains she has to write a speech for the Parent-Teacher Association, so she'll be in her office and Millie can start cleaning up. In the evening, the rooms look perfect again. Nina's husband Andrew arrives with their daughter Cece and Nina rushes to do the introductions. Andrew is confused by all this since Nina didn't consult him first, but he still welcomes Millie to the house. Afterward, Millie goes to her room in the attic to settle in. She notices that the door has no key and there's only one very small window that can't be opened. When Nina brings her some food, Millie asks if they could find a way to open the window and Nina promises to talk to the handyman. Millie also asks for a key for the deadbolt and Nina promises to take care of that too, explaining that this room used to be Andrew's storage for his files. Nina then gifts her a new phone with the credit card information so Millie can do the groceries. The next morning Millie tries to leave the room and discovers the door is stuck, but thankfully she can open it after pulling a lot. Suddenly she hears some screaming, so she rushes downstairs and finds Nina throwing things all over the kitchen while asking where her speech notes are. When Andrew enters the kitchen, Nina accuses Millie of stealing the notes. She then has a breakdown, so Andrew picks her up and comforts her. He tells her to have a shower and spend the rest of the day rewriting her speech. Nina tells Millie to be more careful because she's ruined her day and Millie apologizes to avoid an argument. After Nina leaves, Andrew apologizes for his wife's behavior, saying she's been acting strange lately. At the window, Enzo has been watching everything. When Millie takes out the trash, Enzo asks her why she's here. She explains she got the job and Enzo wants to ask more, but he sees Nina watching them so he goes back to work. Later, when Millie cleans the toilet, she finds a strange pellet in the water. Suddenly Nina appears behind her and says she's never fit in with the other school moms, mentioning lots of stress. Millie says it may be the pregnancy hormones, so an annoyed Nina sends her to make dinner. At the table, Cece tells Millie to rewash her glass and speaks very rudely to her. Andrew invites Millie to dine with them but Millie turns him down and returns to her room. On her phone, she checks the family's social media and starts feeling very attracted to Andrew. At that moment he comes in with a cupcake for her, only to suddenly kiss her. Millie then wakes up and freaks out over these new feelings. On Saturday, Nina gives Millie a key to her room. Then Millie tries to leave since today is her day off, but Nina says she needs her at home. An argument ensues until Andrew interrupts them and lets Millie leave. Moments later Millie is at the Department of Social Services to meet with her counselor. It turns out she's on parole and these meetings are mandatory. Millie gives the lady her new contact information and all the notes she's been taking in her diary. The counselor reminds her to hold on to the job, because if she doesn't she'll have to serve the 5 years left on her sentence. On her way out, Millie gets a call from Nina telling her to pick Cece up from her ballet class, but she hangs up before giving her the address. Millie desperately does some Googling and manages to make it to the school just in time. However, another girl's mother tells her that Cece was supposed to spend the night at her friend's house. Millie explains that Nina sent her, so the mother calls Nina and confirms that they'd already agreed on this playdate, blaming the confusion on Millie. When Millie goes home, Nina scolds her for making a scene at ballet school and pretends she told her about the sleepover. Andrew's mother Evelyn is visiting and she criticizes the way Millie dresses. She's brought some old ceramic dishes for her son, explaining that they're a family heirloom. That night, Millie can't sleep so she goes downstairs to watch TV. Suddenly Andrew appears and Millie apologizes, but he tells her it's okay and joins her on the couch. They talk about families and Millie reveals she hasn't heard from hers in a while. Andrew offers his sympathies while casually touching her leg. He also shares that Nina's parents died in a house fire when she was a kid. Nobody knows how the fire started and for a while the police thought Nina did it. At that moment Nina enters the room and sends Andrew back to bed. Then she fires Millie for trying to get close to her husband. Millie begs for one more chance, so Nina agrees to give her one more week as a test and asks her to dress properly from now on. She also tells her to stay away from Andrew. The next day Nina invites her friends for tea and tells them she'll be visiting a fertility specialist in the city because she wants another kid. When Nina leaves the room to take a call, Millie overhears the other women talking about her. They would have guessed Nina was pregnant because she hasn't been taking care of her looks and they think Andrew deserves better. The couple has a prenup because Nina was poor before she married him. She also spent 9 months in a psych ward. The gossiping stops as soon as Nina returns. That night Millie writes in her diary that Nina has lied about everything and she feels very bad for Andrew. As soon as she saves enough money, she plans to quit. Suddenly Nina bursts into the room and tells Millie that she'll have to babysit Cece this Saturday because she and Andrew have an important appointment. When Saturday comes, Millie waits until the couple is gone and looks around the bathroom to find Nina's medicine. She Googles the name and discovers it's for psychosis. Getting scared, Millie calls a friend to ask her for help getting a new job. Cece overhears her and asks if she's leaving, but Millie assures her she misheard. Later, while Cece is playing with her dollhouse, Millie discovers she took her beloved troll and scolds her. When Millie tells Cece to stay out of the attic, Cece says she should do the same. Suddenly they hear a door being slammed and Cece's parents arguing. Nina walks down the corridor in tears before Andrew asks Millie to talk in private. He explains that Cece has ovarian insufficiency, which means they've been trying to get pregnant for years to no avail. Cece is Nina's daughter from a previous boyfriend. In the middle of the night, Millie is awakened by a noise and screaming. She goes downstairs and hears that the couple is arguing while throwing things. When she knocks on the bedroom door, Nina opens it and reveals a blood-stained mirror glass in her hand. Millie calls Andrew to check if he's fine and Nina laughs, wondering if Millie learned that she's crazy. Then Andrew takes the shard away and closes the door on Millie's face. The next morning Nina apologizes to Millie for lying about her pregnancy. She wants to start fresh, so she gifts Millie some of her old clothes. Next, Nina asks Millie to get tickets for a musical and reservations at a restaurant so she can make it up to Andrew. Cece will stay at a friend's house so Millie can have her day off. During ballet class, another nanny tells Millie that Nina was sent to the psych ward because she tried to drown Cece in the bathtub and took lots of medicine to self-delete. When Millie goes home, she asks Enzo what he knows about the family and Enzo says she shouldn't be here. They're interrupted by Nina, who tells her not to talk to Enzo. After he walks off, Nina asks about an envelope with tickets and a restaurant reservation. Millie reminds her that she asked for those, but Nina denies it, saying that on Saturday she and Cece are going to DC. Since these things aren't refundable, Nina will deduct the cost from Millie's salary. An argument ensues, but they're interrupted by Andrew, who assures Millie that she won't have to pay for anything and he'll call the credit card company to reverse the purchase. On Saturday, Andrew sees Millie coming out of the bathroom in just a towel. After she dresses up, he apologizes and explains he couldn't cancel the tickets, so he wants her to have them. When Millie explains she has no friends, Andrew says they should go together. Millie wears one of Nina's old dresses and the duo has a great time at the theater. Then they use the restaurant reservation as well. During dinner, Andrew admits his marriage isn't doing well before he asks Millie to dance. They have lots of fun together and decide to go to a hotel because they've drunk a lot and therefore can't drive. They go to separate rooms and Millie checks her phone, only to discover she has lots of texts from Nina, including one firing her. A desperate Millie goes to ask Andrew for help and he assures her he won't lose the job before kissing her. They end up getting dirty. The next morning Andrew and Millie agree they won't tell Nina about this and that it won't happen again. However, when they arrive home, Andrew kisses Millie and they end up getting naughty again. When Nina arrives, Millie is waiting with lunch ready. Nina apologizes for her texts before mentioning the 10 years Millie spent in prison. Andrew is shocked but doesn't say anything. Then Nina sends Millie to get groceries but asks her to use her car because Millie's old vehicle is damaging their reputation. At the grocery store, another nanny tells Millie that she's brave for accepting a phone from her bosses since they usually use them to control their employees. Millie now realizes that Nina knows about the affair. While putting the groceries in the car, Millie is suddenly surrounded by the police. They arrest her for stealing the car, which has been reported as stolen. Thankfully, Andrew arrives just in time to clear up the misunderstanding. On their way home, Millie apologizes for not telling him about her time in jail, but Andrew assures her it doesn't bother him. At the house, Nina confirms that she knows about the affair and threatens to tell the police that Millie stole her dresses. Andrew finally snaps and screams at Nina to kick her out of his house. When Millie asks if she should help her pack, Nina slaps her and insults her before leaving in her car. She stops on the street to cry and scream in frustration. Afterward, Andrew puts ice on Millie's cheek and tells her she can become the new lady of the house. For the next few days, Andrew and Millie spend all their time together, having lots of fun and often doing the dirty. One morning, Millie is making breakfast and serves it on Evelyn's china, only to drop it on the floor when she's startled by Enzo staring at her from outside. Andrew rushes downstairs when he hears the noise and Millie tells him what happened, so Andrew fires Enzo. Then Andrew tells Millie to put the china pieces in a bag because he knows someone who can restore them. Millie does so, yet Andrew scolds her for not washing the pieces first. Afterward, Andrew takes Millie to the attic to drink and get dirty. Moments later, when Millie wakes up, she finds the room empty. She tries to come out but finds the door locked, and in the corridor Andrew says that she isn't allowed to leave yet. Meanwhile, it's revealed that after crying in her car, Nina laughs in happiness. She goes to a hotel and celebrates that she's finally free. She drinks a lot and burns Andrew's picture. Then she starts writing a letter to Cece explaining everything. Nina didn't start the fire that killed her parents, and losing them caused her a lot of trauma. She spent her childhood in different foster homes but eventually got a scholarship for law school. There she had an affair with a married professor who knocked her up. The man didn't want anything to do with the baby, so Nina became a single mother. While working at a law firm, Nina met Andrew and they immediately hit it off. After just 6 weeks of dating, they got married. They moved to the house Andrew designed for his previous fiancée, which Nina should have seen as a red flag. She dyed her hair blonde because Andrew asked, and he'd always comment if he could see her roots. One day, Nina was busy with Cece and couldn't make it to the hairdresser's in time. When Andrew saw her roots, he asked her to go to the attic to get some files. Nina searched all the drawers but they were empty, and while she was distracted Andrew locked the door. He scolded her for not dyeing her roots in time and slid an envelope under the door, telling her to put 100 hairs from her scalp in it. If he found one hair that wasn't pulled from the root, she'd have to start again. Nina refused to do it but Andrew just walked away. A desperate Nina kept pounding the door and the window to no avail. The mini fridge had water but no food, and she had to relieve herself in a bucket. Eventually she had no choice but to painfully get the 100 hairs and put them in the envelope. However, when Andrew checked the contents, he discovered that one strand didn't have a follicle and told her to start over. After Nina did it all again, Andrew finally opened the door and made her drink some water while telling her that he did this for her own good. Nina immediately ran out to find her daughter, but at that moment she started to feel sick and realized that Andrew put something in the water. When she woke up, she found Cece in the bathtub on the verge of death. Nina desperately tried to save her, but at that moment the cops arrived and pulled her away. Andrew soon arrived too and pretended to be a concerned father, but he was actually enjoying Nina's arrest. For the next 9 months, Nina was locked up in a psychiatric hospital. She tried to tell the doctors the truth about Andrew, but he got rid of all the evidence so nobody believed her. Eventually Nina ended up saying she did try to kill Cece, which the doctors saw as a sign she was getting better, so they let her go home. For the next few years, Nina played the role of the perfect wife while Andrew continued to say awful things behind her back. He wanted a baby of his own, but Nina got an intrauterine device to prevent pregnancies and bribed a doctor to get her a diagnosis that would mark her as infertile. If Nina made even a tiny mistake, Andrew locked her up in the attic. Enzo was the only person who believed Nina and tried to help her escape, but Andrew caught them red-handed and she was sent to the institution again. When Nina was released, Enzo tried to help her again, saying he had already lost a sister to Andrew. However, Nina told him to stay out of it because she had her own plan. She wanted to hire a housemaid to make Andrew fall for another woman, and she chose Millie on purpose because she was blonde and desperate to survive. When she learned that Millie went to prison for murder, her plan changed and she got a cheese knife ready. In the present, Nina picks Cece up from school so they can escape together. Cece thinks they should bring Millie along. Meanwhile, Andrew slides a piece of the broken china under the door and tells Millie to carve 21 deep lines into her stomach. If she doesn't do it right, she'll have to start over. Millie refuses and pounds on the door to no avail. She starts thinking about her high school years and the day she went back to her room to find a classmate taking advantage of her roommate. Millie immediately grabbed a decoration and started hitting him in the head until he was dead. Unfortunately, the boy came from an important family with lots of influence, and instead of self-defense, Millie was charged with murder. While searching the attic, Millie finds the cheese knife. Then she starts to painfully carve the requested lines, and when she's done she calls Andrew, but he doesn't show up until morning. As he talks sweetly to her and promises a new future, Millie stabs him in the neck with the cheese knife and tries to run. Andrew attacks her and drags her back, but Millie kicks him and manages to leave the room, which she locks up. Afterward, Millie goes to the kitchen to eat something. On Andrew's phone, she sees a text from Evelyn asking him if he's divorced yet. A furious Neil grabs a bunch of things and goes to the attic door to hear Andrew apologize in a very manipulative way. Millie slides some pliers under the door and asks him to pull out his front tooth, but since Andrew refuses, she starts breaking the rest of Evelyn's china. Andrew keeps pounding on the door and offering her money, but it's not enough for Millie. She tells him she was sent to prison for murder while pouring gas on the floor. When she lights a match, Andrew hears it and finally agrees to his punishment. He grabs the pliers and screams in pain while getting what she asked for, and Millie enjoys the show by watching the security camera on his phone. After Andrew slides his tooth under the door, Millie grabs it and says she'll come back in the morning. That night, Millie falls asleep in front of the TV. Nina returns to the house and sees the light in the attic window, so she thinks Millie is there and rushes upstairs to save her. At the same time, Nina wakes up and sees what's happening on the camera, so she runs upstairs as well and watches how Nina opens the door for Andrew, who pushes her down the stairs. Millie grabs a vase and breaks it on Andrew's head, causing him to chase after her. He manages to grab her from behind and starts choking her, but Millie bites his arm to free herself and punches him a few times before running again. Andrew searches for her around the house and instead finds Nina, so he apologizes and asks to start over, using more manipulative tactics. Nina calls him a monster and a furious Andrew tries to attack her again, however Millie appears behind him and throws him over the railing. Andrew hits his head and back several times as he falls, so he's already dead when he lands in the lobby. Nina takes a light bulb and drops it too to make it look like Andrew fell when he was trying to change it. Millie thinks nobody will believe that story, but Nina tells her to leave anyway. Millie drops Andrew's tooth and leaves while Nina calls Enzo for cleanup. When the police arrive, Nina plays the sad widow. An officer mentions the stab wound in Andrew's neck, since falling couldn't have caused it. However, this officer also reveals that Andrew's previous fiancée was her sister, who never recovered after the breakup. As revenge, the cop agrees that Andrew's death was an accident. The next day at the funeral, Evelyn wonders what happened to Andrew's tooth and criticizes Nina for how she dressed Cece. When Millie shows up, Nina hugs her and gives her a hefty check so she can start over. Sometime later Millie has a job interview with another rich woman and brings Nina's recommendation letter. When the woman implies that her husband is abusing her, Millie swears she can help. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.